Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to discuss a topic that shines in the area of intermittent fasting because of the additional health benefits associated with it. I'm talking about the 72-hour water fast. We have so much to cover, so let's get started. Hey everyone, before we get started, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell. Also, today's topic was inspired by viewers' questions, so please be sure to comment down below with other areas of interest that you would like to hear more about in future videos. So let's start with, why would you want to do a water fast? And at the top of the list is the stem cell rejuvenation and longevity that we experience. Truly an immune system reset, something that we all want to experience. A robust, appropriately functioning immune system. And the 72-hour fast can make that happen through this rejuvenation process, not to mention the other benefits of fasting leading up to those 72 hours, like autophagy, the microbiome reset, decreased inflammation, increased insulin sensitivity, increased dopamine receptors, neuroprotection, cancer prevention, and the list continues. I go into detail about these benefits as well as the timeline in a previous video, so please be sure to go back and check that out if you'd like to know more. Okay, so the water fast. In its basic form, it is just that. Only having water during your period of fasting. No coffee, tea, salt, electrolytes, or vitamins. And do I recommend going about it in this way? No, I do not. What we know is that within the US, our soils are mineral deficient. Not to mention that with fasting, we experience a loss of electrolytes that need to be replaced. And choosing to forego electrolyte replacement is not at all recommended. Electrolytes are so very important for supporting things like cardiac conduction and contraction, as well as nerve and muscle function. So please be sure to focus on those electrolytes while you're fasting. And then when you're considering what type of water to go with, something to consider is avoiding distilled water. It is absent of minerals, and that can make an imbalance worse. Spring water, which has some minerals, depending on what brand you're going with, or filtered water, are both two better options. And in case you're wondering, I personally go with coffee and tea when I'm doing my water fast because they have some additional fasting inducing properties like stimulating autophagy. But again, they are two options that you can choose to forego. So, as you're considering going into a water fast, one very key important thing to consider is consulting with your medical provider, especially if you have any type of chronic disease or you're on medication. These longer fasts should really only be done with the approval of your medical provider. And then after you've gotten their blessing, the next step would be to step back and look at your personal stamina. Meaning, how far have you come in building that fasting muscle? Jumping from, say, a 16-8 to a 72-hour water fast can put you on the struggle bus. Just think back. When you were first fasting, you likely went through some growing pains in building that fasting window. Amplifying those growing pains by going straight into a 72-hour fast may not result in the best outcome, meaning that you may not be able to complete it. So definitely set yourself up for success. If you're doing 16-8, for example, try advancing to 24. If you're doing 23-1, try pushing it further to a 36-hour fast. Do that first, build your fasting muscle, and you'll see that you're set up so much better for crushing that goal of 72 hours. The next thing you want to do is to analyze your diet. And here's a little clarification. If you've previously visited my channel, you likely have heard me say that I don't subscribe to food elimination, with the exception of processed foods and inflammatory foods. I try to cut those out. I do intuitive eating and focus on eating whole foods, as well as preparing home-cooked meals loaded with veggies. But if there is a time to watch your carb intake, it's before a 72-hour water fast. Eating too many carbs before going into a water fast is going to make you more insulin resistant. And that may also affect your blood sugar stabilization and lead to more food cravings. Ultimately, it can make it harder for you to get through that 72-hour fast. And another reason that you want to avoid foods like pasta and bread is because we know that carbs make us hold on to water. So when we're going into our longer fast, we're dumping some of that extra water, which can cause problems with electrolyte imbalances, and loading up on the carbs doesn't help with this problem. You also want to avoid refined carbohydrates, inflammatory oils, anything that is going to result and an increase in your blood sugar and insulin levels. You want to stabilize both as much as possible going into that water fast, and focusing on healthy fats and protein will help you to do just that. Something that you may want to consider is doing a fat fast prior to doing a water fast. If that is a topic that you would like to hear more about, please leave a comment down below, and I can cover it in a later video. Another thing that you may want to consider leading up to your fast is to prepare meals for the family ahead of time. I frequently cook meals for the family while doing a 36 to 42 hour fast, and it is not always the most pleasant experience. And yes, it gets easier over time. However, if you're completely new to a 72-hour fast, you don't want to get stuck in this situation. Those delicious aromas can trigger a cephalic phase insulin response, triggering those cravings. So, doing meal prep ahead of time, having something quick and easy to throw in the oven can be a lifesaver. And then you can just vacate the premises or go for a walk if need be. No joke, the first time I did a 36-hour fast, I saw that the family was low in milk during dinner, and I volunteered to pick some up. And then I sat in the parking lot until I was sure they were done, and I made it through. So it's important to prepare. Another topic that I want to be sure to cover is monitoring your blood sugar and ketone levels, if you're able to. Having something like a continuous glucose monitor is super helpful to have, and knowing when to call it quits is important. If you're checking your blood sugar and it's lower than 50, don't even question it. It is time to break your fast. Or if your ketones are greater than 7, again, time to break your fast. So it's important to keep an eye on those numbers. Other symptoms that you also want to monitor for include dizziness, nausea, bad headaches, or lethargy. These are all concerning signs, and you need to end your fast. And focusing on electrolytes and hydration can help ward off feeling a little weak or not as cognitively sharp. However, if you're doing these things and you're still having any of the symptoms I just listed, again, do not hesitate to break your fast. So, as you progress through your fast, you may be wondering if you can use some of the fasting aids at your disposal to make it through. And you should try to do without, if at all possible. Using something such as MCT oil in your coffee is kind of a gray zone. Another thing that you want to consider is what your target goal is when you're making those decisions. And considering what your target goals are when you're debating whether to go with a fasting aid is important. Let's say your goal is to maximize autophagy. Going with something such as bone broth can actually halt the process because of the protein content. Okay, so you've made it through your 72-hour water fast. Here's the next big thing to consider. How do you break your fast? And how you go about it is super important. First things first, you just did amazing things for your body. And amongst those are the benefits that you just delivered to your gastrointestinal system, specifically your microbiome. For those of you that have visited my channel previously, you know I am a big fan of the microbiome and all of the benefits associated with cultivating a healthy microbiota. A few at the top of my list include disease prevention, cancer prevention, insulin sensitivity, help with mood, and sleep regulation. I'll have to do a full video on this topic. So, when you break your fast, you want to nourish that healthy bacteria. And the way to do that is to go with something like bone broth to start off with. And you know I'm a big fan. And this is because it helps to protect the lining of your gut because of the glycine component. And this can help to stave off things like leaky gut. You also want to be gentle on your system to start off with. And then after the bone broth, the next thing that you may want to include is a good source of probiotics. A great thing to reach for is fermented foods. I personally prefer to go with something like kefir, but you can also do fermented yogurt, sauerkraut, some kimchi, or kombucha. After that, we want to encourage those good strains of bacteria that you've just added in and feed them with prebiotics to help them thrive. A great way to do this is to focus on foods that are great sources of short-chain fatty acids and focusing on those veggies. You can do apple cider vinegar, fresh greens, raw seeds, cruciferous vegetables, but a note of caution, your stomach lining is sensitive during this phase. You don't want to pick food choices that you potentially have a food sensitivity to, or that may result in bloat or stomach distress. And lightly steaming your vegetables can also help with this. This makes them easier to digest. And then after you've fed your healthy microbiota, you can move on and take in a healthy fat like avocado, or go with a good clean source of protein. And this period of breaking your fast is not something that you do all in one shot. Give yourself some time, ideally 30 minutes in between each of these. Whenever I do a longer fast, I aim to have a minimum of 8 hours with respects to an eating window. You don't want to overwhelm your system. You want to ease into it. This newfound microbiota is a huge asset to your health, and you don't want to undo the benefits. You also don't want to feel lethargic because you just raided the kitchen and experienced a large surge in blood sugar and insulin levels. Okay, but after you've completed this process, 30 minutes in between each, you can move on and enjoy more of your main meal. But definitely no refined carbs or sugars to break your fast. I'll be doing a 72-hour fast in the next couple of weeks with the help of a continuous glucose monitor, a keto monitor, as well as other tools. Please be sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell if you're interested in completing a 72-hour fast and you would like an idea of what you might expect. Okay, you guys, so much information. If you would like to know more about what you can expect hourly when you do a fast, or you want to know what's a better option for you personally, time-restricted eating versus an extended fast, be sure to check out this video. I'll see you in the next one.